Welcome back to video number 5 of making the ambidextrous blanket. So in our previous video, we crocheted row 2 using our right hand and crocheting from right to left using the Elmore double crochet stitch. So before we go any further, if you would like to, if you feel that you might get confused on what is your right row and your wrong row, your right side and your wrong side, you can take a little safety pin and just mark the right side by just putting the pin through a stitch. And that way, if you come back and pick up your work, you will know which orientation to hold your work. The right side tends to look different from the wrong side. Can you see the difference? This side, the wrong side, tends to, it's got all those bumps from the back of your stitches when we were initially working into that very beginning chain. Those bumps have a very distinctive look. So you'll see a lot of these bumps on the wrong side. But when you're new to this, you may not be able to distinguish it as well. On the front side, it seems to have more loops. You can kind of see the loops here, and you don't have those very distinguished bumps like on the back. I think it's very obvious, but when you're new to this technique, it can be a little confusing. Okay, so I've marked the right side with my safety pin, and from here on out we're not going to turn our work. We won't actually be turning our work anymore until we get to the very end of the blanket. We're going to finish up with a row of single crochet, and that will be the only other time that we'll turn the work of our blanket. Alright, so to start crocheting with our left hand, let's take out our crochet hook. Just slide it through, and we're just going to reinsert it without twisting our stitch. Just reinsert it, and your working yarn, I always call it my moving yarn. Your working yarn will be coming up from the front. Okay, so just tighten that back up, snug it up to your hook, and hang on to your work now with your left hand and your hook with your left hand. Grab your working yarn, and you want to have it from behind here, and just lace it through your fingers. To begin, we're going to make 3 turning chains. Chain 1, chain 2, and chain 3. And just like in the previous row, this chain 3 actually counts as our first stitch. So we will not be working into that very first Elmore double crochet. So there's your chain 3, chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. You will not work into that because the chain 3 is coming out of that, and it is included as your first stitch. So we're actually going to be working into these 2 top loops right there of the second stitch. So to make that second stitch, just yarn over and put your crochet hook under those 2 top loops. Yarn over again from the back to the front and pull up a loop. You will have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through only 1 loop. That is your chain 1. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over from the back to the front, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And you have just completed your very first Elmore double crochet stitch on this row 3. So again, this counts as stitch number 1, and this counts as stitch number 2. So we're just going to keep working across like this, yarn over. Now because this stitch is so tall, I want to show you something. So you see the top of the stitch where it's got the two, it looks like the V, and your hook goes right into that hole right there. You don't want to put it through this great big gigantic hole. That would actually be called crocheting into the chain space. And you actually want to crochet into the chain stitch, which is the smaller hole at the top. So you've got your work yarned over your hook, and you go under those two top loops. And now notice I'm going to yarn over again, and I want you to notice something when I pull this up. Okay, I've pulled through my loop. And you'll actually, oh, I can't see it. I'm going to take that out because, okay, so I took that out. So there's the two different holes, the big hole at the bottom and the smaller one. You want to go into the smaller one. So you're under the two top loops, but your hook is actually above that back part of the chain stitch. So you're just right, your hook's just right in between the two there. Okay, yarn over and pull up a loop and just finish your stitch by making the chain one. Yarn over and pull through two, and yarn over and pull through two. And you'll just complete this row by making an Elmore double crochet stitch all the way across your blanket. Now you will have 219 stitches. For my little sample here, I only have 10 stitches just to show you. So what do we have here so far? We've got 4 stitches. The chain 3 counts as the first stitch. There's a second stitch, the third stitch, and the fourth stitch. And from the top, there's 4, 3, 2, and 1. And don't forget that that chain 3, that very top stitch of the chain 3, is going to be the top of what is considered the first stitch, and you'll come back and work into that. And I'm going to work across because I want to show you how to work into that chain 3. So I'm just going to take a minute here to work all the way across. I'm actually right-handed, so it's a little more challenging for me to work with my left hand. Although I actually did complete an entire blanket for my granddaughter working ambidextrous crochet. And how I kind of came to do that was I was kind of suffering from some tendinitis, and with my right arm, and that's kind of how I kind of made myself kind of learn to crochet with my left hand, because I just enjoy crocheting so much. And I thought, well, you know, why not? I was up for the challenge. Okay, we're coming to the end here. We just have a couple more stitches to work. Okay, I've got one more regular stitch to work into, and then we're going to be working into that chain 3, which is a little more difficult. You'll kind of find that when you're working in your non-dominant hand, you tend to want to make your stitches a little tighter, so you really have to control that. Okay, so we're at the very end, and I want you to see this chain 3 from the previous row that was our first stitch. So chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. So that very top chain is where you're going to be working into. So just make your yarn over. And if you have to turn your work, it's a little hard to get under these loops. So flip your work around if you have to. I might have to kind of flip it toward my right hand just so I can get under this other loop. Okay, there we go. I'm under both. Okay, let me grab my working yarn, get that lace through my fingers again, and yarn over and pull through that chain 3. Oh, it's a little tight. Okay, yarn over and pull through 1, which makes your chain 1. Yarn over and pull through 2. Having a little more difficult time because, again, this is my non-dominant hand. And it looks like my yarn wants to splice. Okay, I'm going to take that out and start over. I'm going to yarn over. There's my last chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. That chain 3 is really big now because I already had my hook into it, so it's much easier to go under. Okay, now yarn over and pull through, yarn over, and pull through 1 to make your chain 1, yarn over and pull through 2. I find that I really have to lighten up on my tension. Yarn over and pull through the last 2. Okay, success. We have made it across. All right, so you can see how you have worked into that chain 3. And so counting your stitches across, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And from the top, again, you always want to count your stitches, because if you make any mistakes, it's better to catch it now instead of having to rip back a ton of work. So that's stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that 10th stitch over here is the top of the chain 3 that we made in the beginning. Chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. All right, and those 2 rows, the second row and your third row, is basically going to be your repeat rows throughout this entire blanket. All right, next video, I will show you how many times you have to repeat that until we get to our accent color.